let's just talk about hazard insurance versus liability insurance, and that's I always see those on every policy. So what's the difference? What do those cover?
The hazard insurance covers the structure, the home itself. Liability insurance goes with your home, and that covers in case you hurt somebody.
Got it.
Again, doesn't include vehicles or motorcycles, but if somebody slips on your property is the most common, gets hurt in your pool, your dog bites them, the liability covers the other person.
Got it. What other type of, let's say, coverage or riders or additional first off, define what a rider is for people.
That's where you pay me more money.
Got it.
For riders or
it's the additional overcharge. Is that what it is?
Yeah, it's an upcharge. No, the riders, the most common is when homeowners policies almost invariably have limits on jewelry, firearms, artwork, things like that. So if you want a rider, it means you're going to pay the insurance company more money to specifically insure an item that we limit. And again, jewelry, I think, is wedding rings all day long.
So what about personal property otherwise? Let's say, you're ordering your homeowner's policy. Okay, so you got hazard insurance to cover the structure.
The structure.
You've got liability to cover in case somebody gets hurt and tries to sue you.
Right.
What about all the other stuff?
That's those are contents, and that's the stuff that you keep in your home. So the way, when I teach a class, I'll explain it. If you turn your home upside down and shake it, I like that. Yeah, it's easy for me to understand. So
wrap our brains around that.
Yeah.
Okay, wait. I got to check just before you finish.
Go ahead.
We say that in the real estate business too, because we have the real property, right, which is the real estate, the building and the land and everything, and then you have personal property, right? And we say the same thing.
Same thing.
If you turn the house upside down and shake it, that's personal property, right?
Right, and the homeowner's policy will also cover that.
Got it. But you can have different limits on that. So, let's say you have all this expensive whatever, right? You can do that. And that brings up another question that we always recommend, and people should always do this, is documenting the contents of your home. How do you recommend people do that?
Easy. It's really funny. We all know how many couches and TV sets we have, but whenever there's a loss by fire, and there were some in California where it literally, in Los Alamos as well, right?
Yeah, it was brutal.
It leveled the house. There was nothing but ashes. It's our clothing, our socks, our silverware, stuff that we accumulate. Nobody goes to Target and buys $100,000 and outfits their kids. Right? It's done over time.
Yeah.
And so I recommend a video of those. Open all your drawers, shoot all your socks, your clothes, your, things that we don't think about. And for God's sakes, don't keep that in the kitchen cabinet above the stove.
Yeah, right. Keep it. Well,
keep it in the cloud.
Do it in your phone, right, and keep it in the cloud.
Exactly.
I got to tell you a story on that. So when first house I owned up here in Rio Rancho, I did it with one of those big old VHS recorders. Yes. Yeah. I mean,
we're dating ourselves, but yes.
I know. I mean, some people probably don't even know what that is. No, I think most of the listeners here know what that is. But I mean, now we just carry it around in our pocket.
Use your iPhone.
Yeah, you put it out in the cloud and it's there. So that's good. So documenting is good.
Smart.
It's something that as of 2020, I think is obviously become to the forefront is working at home.
Yes.
And so a lot of people are working from home, maybe, have built out a home office now. Maybe they're doing kind of co-working spaces. They've still got their office space, but they also have a home working space, which I have.
Right.
What would you recommend to somebody that has that situation?
That's an unbelievably appropriate question right now.
Oh, of course it is. Yes.
It is, especially during COVID. Yeah. Every homeowner's policy will have limits on business property, stuff you use for business.
Okay.
So to get back to your riders, you can get, and they're really inexpensive. You can get a rider for that to cover, quote, business property, because one of the things that homeowners policies exclude are, quote, business properties. Most of them will give you a little bit, Tego. They'll give you $1,000 or $2,000. Some of the really good ones may give you $5,000. That may or may not be enough.
So if you have I know a lot of people will now, when they itemize on their taxes, they'll pull out all their office equipment. It's
Correct.
a business expense, right? I mean, obviously in the real estate business, we've all been doing that for years. But a lot of people that haven't ever, worked the way realtors do are now experiencing this. And so now they're pulling out their computer, they're pulling out their printer, their desks, their furniture, whatever they're using as their office equipment, right?
Yep.
And claiming it as a business expense. So that means if they've done that, they probably won't get covered on that?
They will have limited coverage unless they add, we call it, business property on and off premises. Because a lot of times especially as a realtor, some of y'all live out of your cars, from the best I can tell. You may not at this stage.
I didn't even see that bus coming. Like, hey, you work with a lot of realtors and lenders here in Albuquerque, so be careful there now.
I do.
Yeah, and that brings up, really, I want to transition to this other conversation, is around when somebody's buying a home, there's this piece where we have a contingency, right? Home goes under contract. They have this period to do all their due diligence.
Correct.
Right? One of the things that home buyers have the option to do and need to do is check into insurance, and they have an option to, get quotes, figure out what it's going to cost, all that stuff. And the buyer actually has the opportunity to either back out of the deal if they feel like something comes up. So when somebody's gone under contract on a home and they want to get, quotes and figure it out, should they just start calling around and get a couple different quotes? I mean, I know that you want them to just call Bill Tobin at Farmers Insurance Albuquerque, but
yes, but I think honestly it is, I wouldn't be honest if I didn't say get a couple quotes.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're going to have a contractor, do a job for you, normally you'll get a couple bids.
Yeah.
We hear this all the time, to keep them honest.
Yeah.
My philosophy is give them the best bid you can right out of the box, and that's my best.
Yeah.
But I think it's prudent.
Yeah.
And
got it.
It's not just price, Tego. It's also coverage. Some companies will have coverages that you may want, and they may not offer it. And so the policies, even though they're all close, there's some nuances that can be pretty serious.
If somebody just calls in and says, I need an insurance policy or homeowner's policy, or what do we call it? We call it hazard insurance, or we call it homeowner's policy. It's kind of all the same, but homeowner's
I think the mortgage companies like to call it hazard, and we call it homeowners.
Homeowner's policy, because that includes the liability.
Yes.
But every mortgage company, I'm assuming, has some limitations or some requirements on what coverage you need to get, right?
Yes. They usually want the amount of the loan covered. Of course. Is not unusual.
Yeah.
They don't require much more. Sometimes they require flood insurance, which is expensive in New Mexico.
Let's go down that road, actually, if you got a second.
I do.
So, people may not think about it that, New Mexico, there's places where we need flood insurance.
Yes, it's it's unlike in the Midwest where the rivers, overflow. We'd love some more water in the Rio Grande now.
Boy howdy, yeah.
But it is flash flooding, which happens in Albuquerque, Phoenix, and the desert Vegas, the desert communities. If the mortgage company requires flood, it's usually not cheap.
Yep.
And that is required.
And that would be
because homeowners don't cover flood. That's the problem. We cover if a pipe, we've had cold weather.
Yeah.
So pipe bursts, sudden and accidental pipe bursts, covered one this morning.
Yeah.
Those are fine. Most homeowners' policies are going to cover that for you. None of them cover flood.
And I want to go down that road, the difference between what homeowners covers versus what home warranties cover, because that question comes up a lot. But on this whole thing of flood insurance, that's one of the reasons we have this whole contingency period. Because as a home buyer, you want to know that. And sometimes maybe the seller doesn't know, or maybe they haven't looked at the FEMA map in 10 years and they don't know that.
Change.
And the FEMA maps change. So the FEMA maps are the maps. Explain what the FEMA map is.
Basically, that's what the mortgage companies use. That's the Federal Emergency Management. And the FEMA maps define whether you're in a flood zone and the type of flood zone. So flood insurance is not the same. You can be, it's interesting, Tego, you can be on, I've seen this in Albuquerque Acres, where part of your property's in a flood zone, but the house isn't.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's an interesting argument with a mortgage company.
Yeah.
There's other ones where very common where one house on the block is in a flood zone and down the street they're not.
Yeah.
So those maps are very...
We've seen some in the middle of the Northeast Heights, not North Albuquerque Acres, but in the middle of the Northeast Heights in a subdivision with, what we would consider, tract type homes, production homes. And it's in a flood zone and going, where did this come from?
Right.
Yeah. So it's one of those things that, just because you're not near the Rio Grande or you're not near any, kind of big arroyos, you still got to make sure. And of course, the most prominent places in the metro is south, Los Lunas, South Valley. Is that true?
Yes. Los Lunas, Belen. They'll have a lot of times they require flood insurance.
Valencia County area.
The interesting thing is farmers now, a lot of folks don't know this. We didn't have a lot of choices before. We would have to go through the National Flood Plan.
Yeah.
Now there's flood insurance offered. It's more private.
Yeah.
And if you qualify for it, it's literally a third the price.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I mean, we did one the other day where the National Flood Plan was, I think, $2,000. Mm-hmm. They qualified for this modification, and it came in, I want to say, at $600 or $700. The difference was they were able to make the deal because the mortgage company didn't have to escrow as much money.
And that was something you were able to add on as a rider. Yeah.
We were able to give them a different flood policy.
I got it. Yeah. Got it.
So there's also something really quick called an elevation certificate where you get a surveyor. Mm-hmm. If you're so many feet above the base floodplain, again, it is significantly cheaper. So with a good realtor and a good insurance company, there's a lot of value that y'all add to a homeowner.
We see that out in Bosque and Encantado in Bernalillo, that neighborhood, because it's right by the Rio Grande. But some of the homes have the pad sites that have been raised up quite a bit.
Yeah, and it moves you into, you don't even need flood.
Yeah.
Or it goes into a zone that's so cheap. But that's the advantage to me of using professionals.
Yeah, got it. Just one last thing on this whole insurance, doing your due diligence on it. Let's talk about the CLUE report.
Oh God, okay.
The infamous CLUE report. So what does CLUE stand for? If you ever start doing any insurance shopping and stuff, you'll hear that term. What does it mean?
It means they kind of look into you. It's comprehensive. I think it's out of Atlanta. Comprehensive loss underwriting.
Yeah.
And they do two things. They see if you, the person, the buyer, have had any homeowners type claims anywhere in the country. They also look and see if the home has had claims.
So it's kind of like a credit report for you and the home for insurance. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, and it affects it affects the pricing, Tego.
Oh, I know. I've seen it.
Yeah.
I've seen it. You know, generally in an average house, you say, oh yeah, it'll probably be anywhere $600 to $900 for a policy, and then all of a sudden you see a $2,000 quote, and you're like, whoa, what's going on here per year? Yeah.
Yeah, and listen. I bought houses before, and I, at one time, had a condo in Florida that got hit by a hurricane, right? Mm-hmm. And it messed up my CLUE report because I put in a claim. And so I actually had to pay more money myself. So, again, because you know about those type of things,
right.
A good realtor will know that. You should do a CLUE, and so should the insurance agent. They should do a CLUE on both the home and the buyer so that the quote's accurate.
And what happens if they don't do that? Does that mean they all of a sudden after they do the quote, you come back and say, oh, by the way, that price we quoted you is no good?
Exactly.
Yeah, got it.
And that's something that I'm not interested in doing.
No.
I'd rather give them bad news ahead of time.
Yeah. What do you can the public go and get a CLUE report, or is that something only available through insurance?
I don't think I've been a member of the public before.
I know.
So I actually don't know.
Yeah, that's a good question too. I don't know. I mean, I don't know why you'd want to, because you might as well work with the insurance agent anyway to help you through it.
I know, Tego, with you, if you call my office and ask for a CLUE report, now they do charge us, but again, any insurance agent that's working with a realtor, they should do it for free for them as a courtesy.
Well, there's a lot of companies out there now providing these Home Fax. There's one out there. I think it's called Home Fax. It's kind of like Carfax for homes.
Oh, okay.
There's some companies out there doing stuff like that, and I'm sure they're pulling stuff like that from databases if there's been any claims on homes. So let's